All right, so it's 1 Peter 3:7, and we have about a half a page here, 3/4 a page of notes. I don't know that we'll go over them all, but especially the first part. These are actually kind of some notes I had in a sermon, I don't know how long ago, but I thought I would just print them out because, again, like I said, this verse has some statements in it and thoughts in it that are not found directly in Ephesians 5, so I thought we would have one more class on this. So you can see, of course, in the context of 1 Peter, in chapter 3, it begins with the wives, and there are several verses there to the wives, but then verse 7 is to the husbands. And it says, "Husbands likewise dwell with them," or with your wives, "with understanding, giving honor to the wife, as to the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered." So there's several phrases in there that are, that are important, I think, for us to talk about here. And so the husbands have their responsibility here toward the wife. And it says, last week we actually did talk about this first one that says, "Dwell with them with understanding." And you may have a translation that says with knowledge. But there we just pointed out that, not everything that we should know and understand about our wives, or even men should understand about women, are going to be things that are immediately obvious to us. We may think certain ways and think that's the way that girls must be too, and that's just not true. God created male and female in, as unique genders, and they have different, makeup. And that's what he's saying here is, husbands, you need to have knowledge about the differences here. Dwell with your wives with understanding. And so, I even mentioned that there's a lot of good material, a lot of good books that are written from a biblical perspective, bringing out some of these differences. And that, one way to obey this, to dwell with them with understanding, is to read about it and to learn about the differences between men and women and husbands and wives and the roles and the different propensities and things. And so that's what that's about. And I think that Veronica made a comment last week too on it, or you said you were going to and you didn't make it. But not only just for men to learn the differences between men and women, but husbands, learn your wife. Learn your individual wife, right? I mean, not all women are exactly the same either. And so, that's a good point to bring out. And she made a very important point to bring that out to me at home the other night. Learn your wife. Oh, you did say it here in class? Good. Okay, so you weren't just picking on me. Was that where your favorite color came in? And I was like, I took a shot in the dark and I was right, or no? No, I was wrong. It's yellow, though. I know that now. But it does change. Because back when we lived in Kansas, it was purple, right? Okay. I knew that because we had purple all over the house. All right. But learn your wife. What does your wife like? What are her propensities? How does, that kind of thing. So that all kind of goes into this. And it is an important thing to bring out, right? I mean, guys know a lot about the way guys think and the way guys do things, and that's just not naturally the way it is with the other gender, and so we need to learn those kinds of things. And so Peter is bringing this out with understanding, and so we talked about a little bit about that last week. That the next phrase says with understanding, giving honor to the wife. So here, this is where the notes kind of pick up on that, about giving honor. Here I bring out the idea from the Greek word that's translated honor. It's the same word a chapter back, in chapter 2:7, that talks about Jesus as the precious cornerstone, or the cornerstone. Verse 6 says, "Behold, I lay in Zion a chief cornerstone, elect and precious, whoever believes on him." So he's talking about Jesus. And verse 7 says, "Therefore, to you who believe, he is precious." And that's the same Greek word as giving honor to your wife. She is to be precious to you. And here it has to do with like a precious jewel. Like this one I value over everything else, right? This one here has a a preciousness to it that makes it more valuable than anything else. And so you're going to give preference. You're going to give preference to this one whenever it comes down to making, decisions about, your priorities or who you're going to favor in any way. It's always going to be that, well, your wife is going to be treated by you differently than you treat anybody else, than obviously any man, but any other woman too. Your wife is going to be the one treated as precious, as the most valuable woman in the world to you. And that's what Peter means here. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 7. So the word giving honor to the wife is view her as, every time I say you're precious, I think of Gollum, right? In the Lord of the Rings, my precious. He was enamored with that ring. But the idea is that it was the most valuable thing to him in the world. And when he lost it, he lost his mind and everything else. But the point is that I think is a pretty decent illustration about what Peter means here as you see the word used about Jesus being precious. So in the notes here, I just say things like, let her know how precious she is to you, how much you value her. I'm convinced that once we obey the first part of this verse, we'll be better equipped to obey this part. That is to say, dwell with them with understanding. As we said, once you kind of get a better idea of this, the differences in the way that you think and the way that you respond to issues and the way that you try to handle problems, it won't be a point of contention. You will see the preciousness of it, the beauty of how God put male and female together, because they fit. They fit emotionally and intellectually and psychologically. That's just the way God created us. And it's a beautiful thing. When it's better understood, the more precious it is to both parties. You need that aspect in your life as far as what back in Genesis 2 when God said it is not good that man should be alone. The point is that there is a sense of wholeness and fullness that can come only through a marriage relationship. It's not necessary to be married. The Lord himself was never married, so it's not saying if you're not married, you're lesser. It's just saying that there is a sense in which there is a wholeness in the marriage relationship that can be experienced no other way than between a man and a woman who comes together in one and the Lord joins them together. And so it's a blessing. It's a gift from God. And so we should treat it as such. Anybody have any comments on this so far? Good to see the Clintons with us tonight. Welcome. Great to see y'all. I'll bet you had something good to say, Tommy. What is it?
I'm going to tell you the truth. I thought, I ain't opening my mouth. I'm saying
That is a good thing to say. I ain't opening my mouth. She's sitting right next to me. Very good. Very good. Anything else?
So is it as precious to unbelievers as it is to believers?
Well, obviously the marriage gift is given to unbelievers as well as to believers. God joins non-Christians together in marriage just like he joins Christians together, right? I hope we would say that. Paul implied that in 1 Corinthians 7 when he said, if you have an unbelieving spouse, don't leave, stay together. Well, that means that they're married. That means that God joined them together. So whether they're believing or not. So to answer your question, I think that obviously the husband can be blessed if he does learn about his wife, whether he's a believer or not. Now, obviously he's going to have more problems than just that. Because he's not a believer in Christ, he's got his sins. But just on this question, yeah, I think that he would be just as blessed, and he should learn the preciousness of having a gift from God in a wife, a good wife, a wife who is given to him by the Lord, as I think we all would agree. Whether you're Christian or not, God's providence works in the world. So hopefully he'll become a Christian, right, and be saved. Otherwise, it's all for naught. It's terrible to say and think about, but it's the truth. You forfeit your soul, you gain the whole world, profits you nothing. But anyway. Was that? I forgot what your question was.
It just kind of popped up.
Yeah.
In my mind,
Okay. But yes, it reminded me of a very important point to make, that sometimes especially when it comes to the question about marriage and divorce, remarriage and all that sometimes we want to try to make some kind of distinction between those who are not Christians and those who are Christians. Genesis 2 was written before there was sin in the world, before, there was any covenant with God as far as between Israel and God, or the church and God. And so marriage is for everyone, ordained by the Creator. So it's important.
There was Lewis Martin used to come here years ago. He was 80-something when I first started.
Okay.
He was telling me one Sunday, he said, marriage, all you hear is 50-50. He said it's more than 90-10. Sometimes you give 90, sometimes you
Sometimes you got to go above and beyond, don't you?
said it'll work out a whole lot.
That's a good point. Yeah, you're always willing to go the extra mile. That's right. If she asks for your tunic, give her your shirt too, right? Something like that.
I went over and told him, he said, you got something on your mind? I said, it's tough being married. And then he goes,
Easy now. Be careful.
we had a problem. It wasn't nothing major. He said, you know what? You ever thought about it? It might be your fault.
That's probably the first time it dawned on you. It might be my fault.
You know what? It's true. And it just put me on him.
Well, that's great. That's great. Excellent. So appreciate that. Yeah, she is to be the most precious thing. And another illustration sometimes I use. I don't know if you remember that. Was it a Merrill Lynch commercial with the bull, the longhorn bull, going through the some kind of a, I'm trying to think of the crystalware or something, and they're really precious, and he's got to be careful. He could go in there full strength and just destroy all kinds of things and ruin a lot of stuff, but he's got to be careful. Why? Because these are precious vessels. And of course, that's kind of the idea there with a husband giving honor or treating as precious the wife. So once we know some things about our wives, we'll be quick to give them the honor that they deserve.
Hey, Clint?
Yes.
I was just gonna say.
Sure.
You're talking about non-Christians and being married. I think about John the Baptist and when he told Herod,
There you go.
it's not lawful for you to have your brother Philip's wife.
That's right.
And it wasn't because they were believers, it's because, like you say, marriage is an overall.
Yeah, it's because everybody's under the law of God when it comes to marriage. That's right. Everybody's created by God, and so they're answerable to Him. Very good. Yeah, and if they want they say they want the blessing of marriage, because of course God's the giver of that blessing. But sometimes we don't think that we should therefore require them to respect the laws of the Creator who gave the marriage. But that's, clearly, like Billy was saying, even non-believers were condemned for their disrespecting the marriage relationship. That's right. Excellent. So I just have a few, points to make under that about some things that, the Bible says about a wife. Some of the more popular ones, like she is a good find. He who finds a wife finds a good thing. It says in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 22. That doesn't mean you get to call your wife a thing, but it does say that in that verse, he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And somebody can read Proverbs 31 and verse 10 as well. This is that chapter on the virtuous wife. Proverbs 31 and verse 10.
Who can find a virtuous wife? Her worth is far above rubies.
Her worth is far above rubies. There's that idea again of the kind of precious jewels. The idea there. So it is a blessing. It's a good thing to have a wife. Not a necessary thing. But if you are blessed with one, you should treat it as such and thank God for it, and then, of course, fulfill your responsibilities in your role as a husband. The second thing I have here is to understand that she may have great and valuable insight. She may have great wisdom that you would be very, advised to listen to and to take into consideration and respect if it is indeed wisdom. Proverbs 31:26. So we're in that chapter still. Somebody can read that, verse 26.
She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness.
Very nice. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and on her tongue is the law of kindness. So not only does she have wisdom, she is able to use it wisely and use it kindly. I think of Jesus' words there, be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Just because you do have knowledge and you have wisdom, you may have great insight into how to accomplish a task or something, there's still the way to execute that and to do it in a way that is edifying for everyone involved. Don't run roughshod over people. Well, your wife may have great insight into that, and you would be wise to heed that. We should value the opinions of our wives. We are the ones who determine the final decision, clearly, if we're the leader of the house, and as the Bible says. But our wives may help us tremendously by their input. And as a leader, we should take that in consideration. We're going to be responsible for the decisions we make. And what happens if the Lord says, back then, if you would have listened to your wife, you would have done this correctly. But you didn't because you either were prideful or whatever the case was. But that's the point that we want to make from that, of course. I have Proverbs 19 and verse 14 there. So somebody's there, you can read it. 19:14.
House and wealth are an inheritance from fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord.
Houses and riches are an inheritance from the fathers, but a prudent wife is from the Lord. So again, we always remember that in God's providence, He's given you the wife that you have, and now you can make the most of it. If you are a strong believer in providence, then that should resonate with you greatly. All right, any comments so far before we move on? That means you do have a comment, Kendra. How do you agree when you're going like this? Oh, you're shaking your head at him. Well, that makes more sense then. Very good. Very good. Number 3 says that we should remember that she is created as a divine support. Okay, so we talked about this a little bit back in Genesis in the creation account. It's not good that man should be alone, and I will make a helper suitable for him, something that fits, something that will complete this situation. And then the next few verses say that when Adam slept, that God took a rib. And the point here that I'm bringing out is the word for rib, selah in the Hebrew, it means like a support beam. It's even used in the building of Solomon's temple. I have it there in 1 Kings 7, verses 2 and 3. It's talked about Solomon building that temple with 4 rows of cedar pillars and cedar selah, or beams. And, you think of the structure that supports. And, I think that's the idea of the illustration or the imagery of what God did in taking the rib. And there's the wife next to the man from the rib. Well, she, all of that kind of plays into this point. She is a divine support given by God. And so men, our wives are our support to keep us, focused, keep us together, keep us supplied with what we need in order to be the best people for God and the best people for our family, and of course, therefore, for the church and for the culture, community around us. So these are just some blessings to think about that we shouldn't dismiss, and the more that we think about these, the more precious it becomes to our wives become to us, the more obvious that is. And then finally, I say that she is very precious in the sight of God. That's another thing. Remember, when you mistreat or disrespect, or you are not treating your wife as you should, you've got to remember the Lord loves your wife much more than you do. Don't mistreat her. You will get His wrath as a result of it. This verse goes on to talk about your prayers being hindered and things like this. It's going to affect your relationship with God, how you treat and how you view your wife, and how, if she's precious to you. And so that's the idea there. It goes on to say, of course, in this verse that they are heirs together of the grace of life. And so she is absolutely of equal worth. Now that verse, let's see here. The verse says, dwell with them with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel. Now, anybody in here care to venture a guess on what that means?
Well, she is weaker as far as strength.
Okay.
That's the way God made. Men are weaker than men, physically.
Physically.
I think it has to do with the roles that men play.
Okay.
That we are, we have our different roles that, the men, they need to do this, and this, that women can't do.
Okay. Very
That is
good.
said in the Bible.
That's right.
That God gives us, women are supposed to do this, and men need to do this.
That's right. Very good. Yeah. Clearly, the role distinctions have a lot of meaning, and a lot of implications are that the way God created a woman and a man is different in that men are created to fulfill a certain role that involves strength, involves more physical strength. I think we talked about from Ephesians 5 about, who gets up to check the noise out in the garage at night. It's the man, he goes out there and checks to protect the wife, right? Take your sidearm if you need to, but you're the one that's going to get up because you're the one who's going to protect, because you're stronger. That's your role. And but yeah, I think that's the idea, is it's talking about men are created with more physical strength, and that, of course, plays into their responsibilities as husbands and providers. They're the ones who build things out, build bridges and build buildings and build houses and such. And again, I know, don't throw at me that some women do that too. I understand. I'm saying those are the exceptions to the rules. When you see, I worked in a refinery with contractors for several years right out of college, and I remember when you see a woman in a hard hat and with a grinder in her hand, that's unusual. You don't see that all the time. You rarely see that, but you do see it. But that's the point I'm making. That's kind of an exception to the rule. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I don't guess, all things being equal, but that's what I mean. And how much is this important when we start talking about some of the cultural bizarreness that's going on with people who claim to be women and therefore they can go compete against them, in sports? It's just not even fair, and it's too obvious unless you're brainwashed by the kind of wokeism that tries to promote that kind of thing. It's just too obvious. Men are the stronger in that sense, and the wife is the weaker, but that is also why, as the bull in the china closet, needs to be very attentive to how he's moving his strength. She's precious, and so being weaker, you can do a lot of damage in that sense. Did anybody have their hands up? Okay. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, a wife carries, maybe different strengths,
Sure.
but I often think of, when I read this, the word delicate.
Okay.
She can be very strong, in her character and her emotions and things, but she's also very delicate,
Okay.
I think.
So yeah. So
More than the male. in
Right.
a lot of ways.
and it's true. Veronica's mentioning the wife can have certain strengths that the man doesn't, which is, like I said, she may have some wisdom and insight that you don't have because you're not inclined to think in a certain way. But it would be wise for you to listen and then take it into consideration. Say, I didn't think about that, and I wouldn't have thought about that, but thank you for bringing that to my attention, because that's a very important thing that we need to consider here. And then you said the word delicate. Yeah, right. Yeah, you can do a lot of damage as a bull in a china closet if you're not careful. Yeah, very good. Anything else? Like I said, these were some notes that I had, like basically for sermon or for some reason, some lesson that I preached on this. And so some of these last things are just kind of some application or things to think about. Wives often tell marriage counselors that they wish that their husbands would compliment them more, to be more thoughtful and sensitive, right, to how they're feeling and how their day went and things like this. But, sometimes isn't the first thing that crosses our mind when we get home. The first thing that crosses our mind, if we've been working all day, is I got to get a shower and get something to eat. I'm starving, and then I got to get to bed early because I got to get up early in the morning. But the point is, of course, is that, you have a very important job towards your wife too, and being sensitive and complimentary and aware of her and her considerations are very, very important. As far as, I think we used the word chivalry last week, opening the door for her, just showing that kind of deference. Those things that we may have been more careful to do when we were dating. When you're really trying to win them over, you're doing all kinds of things. And Kendra's again going, yep. Sorry, Kendra, we're just hammering on you this afternoon. But, you think, I got to get her a gift. I got to, I'm going to open the door and I'm going to treat her like a queen tonight, because I want her to like me. I want to win her heart. And then the problem comes in because you get married and then you don't have to do that anymore. At least you think that you don't, and husbands need to remember that. So I just say here, husbands, would your wives have married you if when you were dating her, you treated her just like you do right now? So those are things to think about. When wives were asked what they wanted most from their husbands, very few said what the husband would think she would say. It's not that she's after his prestige or his wealth or his power, but they mostly asked for what the men consider the little things: courtesies, consideration, their time, sympathy, their interest in their day and their interest in what they have to say, again, without always having to try to say anything in return or solve a problem for them. Just listen. That's usually what they would say. Speaking ill about your wife or being insensitive toward her feelings is not giving honor. Looking at other women or putting her down, whether in private or especially in public, is the worst thing, one of the worst things you can do. That's not giving honor. It is hurting her, and it's expressing an unthankful attitude for the great gifts that God has given you and your wife has given you. You should never, ever speak ill about your wife to anyone. There's no reason to do that. You can complain about a friend. You can complain about your preacher. You can complain about, a lot of things, but never complain about your spouse in front of anyone. To give honor is to treat your wife as your most precious possession, a gift given by God, and to praise her and to give her the dignity and respect that she deserves by your words and by your actions. And so I had another couple of verses from Proverbs 31 there. Verse 28 and 29, her children rise up and call her blessed, and her husband also, and he praises her. Many daughters have done well. This is what he says. Many daughters have done well, but you excel them all. See, you are the most important one. You are the most precious one to me out of all of them. All right. Any other comments? Well, that's good because it's 7:35. And there's the second bell. Yes, Mark. So, please say that one more time. Okay. The better part of valor. That's right. Excellent. I appreciate that. Well, I appreciate it. Next week we are going to be going into the wives, and so we'll be talking about a few passages. Read Titus chapter 2. Did I say what? It's not next week. It's the week after the next. Okay. So it doesn't matter. Read Titus 2 anyway. it's good, it's good to read anyway. So we'll be dismissed and prepare for our devotional time, and thank you all so much. What is it next week, is the 4th?